Have you ever wondered why everybody else seems like they have it figured out? They can't be insecure. They got it together. Their life is perfect. I don't have the guide or the map that they were given at birth. I can't be the only one who has imposter syndrome, am I? That was me growing up. I was very quiet. I was constantly being asked to speak up. My hands were sweaty. I would turn red immediately when anybody looked at me or asked me anything. I was such an introvert. I was so incredibly shy. I would do what the teachers told me, I would do what my parents told me in order to not be told off, to remain invisible, to not be seen. That behavior helped me then, but it doesn't now. In the years between being a girl and turning into a woman, we become self conscious and we see that others are seeing us back. And we're scared because we're used to being invisible, we're used to hiding, and we're not used to taking up space or by any means impacting the world in a positive way. That couldn't be us. If this is you, you're in the right place. And I'm here to tell you to stop second guessing yourself, because it turns out that growing up is about selling yourself, getting job interviews, entering college or university, even getting into relationships that we want to be in, all have to do with believing that we can be that person for those people and in those roles. What stops a lot of us is the thought of being hated, having haters, and being in any position of confrontation. For me to have to hold my own, have my own opinion, would be so scary for me. I would detest that they wouldn't like me because my self worth was caught up in their perception of me. This is at the root of people pleasing. It is thinking that my value is inherent in your perception of me. There is no way to be liked if you're not willing to be hated. There is one rule: don't be vanilla. This life is about trusting your own intuition, which is God's voice, and hearing that louder than absolutely anybody else's. In this video, you're going to hear all about the definition of confidence, as you know I love, and you're going to find out how it's not something that you have, but something that you build. It's a result of taking action. We're not only building self-trust that we can do it right now, but trust in God that we will be able to do it when the day comes. And if you stay until the end, you'll get the exact question that I use every single time I have to make a decision in order to remain confident and in integrity. Welcome to Devoted to Extraordinary, where today, as you know, is the first, last, only, and best day of your entire life. You never know. If the story I just told resonates at all with how you felt as a child, or maybe how you still feel today about people pleasing and putting others' needs first, subscribe to the newsletter so you can hear more about the upcoming course, Goodbye Good Girl. In this video, I want to address two questions that you need to have in mind. What would you do if what you deeply desire were inevitable? It's yours, no matter what. And two, is it scarier for you to move from where you are right now or to be exactly where you are right now a year from now? Now, confidence is a skill. It is not a personality trait and it is not a feeling. It's not simply something you can have, but something that you need to gain. So, we're going to look at the meaning. Confidence is the feeling or belief that one can rely on someone or something, firm trust. Firm trust. Hold on to that. Or the state of feeling certain about the truth of something, or a feeling of self assurance arising from one's appreciation of one's own abilities or qualities. That third definition is the most important. Being feminine and being confident means that you don't have to be that extroverted quality of confident, which we tend to associate with it. The theater kids, for instance, would always be very loud and able and willing and full and out there. But as the quote goes, empty kettles make the loudest noise. A calm confidence that you want to develop as a woman has nothing to do with that loud sense of self. It can be a very quiet and self assured form of confidence. What you want to be certain of is your inner knowing is right. You are already whole and perfect. That's my definition of perfect. You are whole. You are missing nothing. You are full already. And there is nothing you can do, there is no action you can take to merit more worth. Your value is inherent in your being alive, and you were chosen when you were born. That is simply a fact. You're unable to gain anybody's favor that would give you anything more than you already have. And there is nothing that you have to prove. There is nothing that you can prove, even if you tried. This perspective automatically shifts your focus from external and looking out there for something to internal. Because if you are whole, then you're not missing another half or another piece or part of you. So when you shift that focus from external to internal and you recognize your wholeness, it's because you build on your own self trust. And so that firm trust, that sense of confidence that we have, comes from the action of backing yourself up consistently. With this feeling of wholeness being embodied and actually practiced, not simply a thought in your mind, but a deeper knowing in your body, it's because you have mastered then the art of resting, of surrender, of leaning back. The most feminine you can get is knowing that you are supported. So when you can adopt this thought process of I'm already whole, I'm already full, no part of me is missing. That is the new meaning of perfection. You know that there's nothing out there that you can gain that you don't already have. That is when you're fully embodied in the knowing and the art of resting. You don't have to do something in order for all the pillars of existence that are holding you together right here in this chair to continue. You're completely out of survival mode and you're capable of creating. You're in your heart space, you're in your heart fullness and heart centeredness. In the most practical way I can say it, this is your essence. It is from consistent alignment that you have your essence. To align is to be in line. What we first get is an intuition, an emotion, a feeling. We then develop it into an intention or a thought, a knowing. This is the conversation between the head and the heart consistently. Not only are we receiving emotions, which are energy in motion, we're then turning them into feelings, which is the naming of those emotions, acknowledging what it is that I'm feeling. And then we're repeating that over and over again, validating the thoughts with the feelings, and we're validating the feelings with the repetitive thoughts. Now we have approximately 60,000 thoughts per day, and 90% of those are going to be the same as they were yesterday. A lot of us think we can, but we cannot think ourselves into confidence. It is an action. So if only 10% of the thoughts that you have are different every single day, then only 10% of the actions that you take have the potential of being different. Because 90% of your actions are going to be exactly the same as they were yesterday if your thoughts match as well. Too many of us think a lot but don't do anything differently. And taking action is what is going to change your mindset. It is not the other way around. On that note, I'd really appreciate if you left right now if you're not going to be doing what I'm helping you do and taking these actions, because you're only going to suffer from a guilty conscience. Now, if you're here because you want to change and because you do find that being where you are a year from now is going to be too painful, that you need to change now, that you don't want to die not having experienced everything that this extraordinary life has to offer, you can stay. You can watch this video. It's okay. I approve. You can stay here. So the third part in alignment is integrity. That is actually following through. That is our being, not just knowing, not just thinking, but being it. This is where our hands come in alongside our head and our heart being in alignment. We are now doing, taking action. These are our words and our deeds. Integrity is that you do what you say you will do. Otherwise, how can you trust yourself? Let's be honest. You can't. And then number 4 is impact. It's the result that you get from aligning your head, your heart, and your hands, from the thinking, the feeling, and the doing, giving you that momentum and motivation to pursue it further over and over again. It also is obedience. When you get an intuitive nudge that you need to do something and it's for your own good, it is for yourself tomorrow. And if you don't do it, how are you going to trust yourself to be able to build and handle a business? How are you going to have higher level responsibilities if you can't just do the laundry when you know that you need to do it? So altogether, intention, intuition, integrity, and impact all align into your essence, because you are the embodiment of all of those decisions and all of those actions that you took. People tend to say that your reputation precedes you, but it's in fact your essence that precedes you. Your essence is sort of like your perfume. As a feminine woman, your essence is your soul, it's your spirit, it's how people feel you, it's your vitality, it's your energy when you walk into a room, it's everything about you. It's how you light up or how you don't, and it's how you handle things, because how you do things matters more than what you do. A feminine woman knows these two things. She is ultimately incredibly supported, so she can rest and lean back, and her essence matters more than anything else. Therefore, she is confident. So, confidence is so synonymous with courage. When you have this essence of capacity because you're backing yourself up and you have that firm trust, it means that you're willing to try. You're willing to take a risk. You're willing to leap. You're willing to see where it's going to lead because your focus is inward, listening to those nudges, seeing how does that feel? What is that like? Would that be fun? That's what life is about, especially when you're rooted in your feminine energy and in your heart center. When you're willing to try, there is so much less resistance. As people say, resistance is persistence. So having a story against something perpetuates the story of that itself. So to cancel out resistance and to have this feeling of perfection and wholeness within yourself, do less. Do less out there so your focus can shift inward and do more internally. Be willing to try so the perception of others doesn't matter as much as your own feelings and feedback from trying. See failure as simple learning. For instance, babies learn to walk because they waddle until they fall, or they crawl until they lift themselves up, and then they take 2 steps and they fall again. But we would never call that failure. We call that trying, and we actually call that learning to walk. So why do we see anything else any different? I think a big key to this is how weird can you be on your own? Be willing to be seen as an idiot. Mess up. I take endless bloopers of these videos before I post them, and I think they're hilarious. I actually send them to my friends. Laugh at yourself. When you trip in the street, do you laugh about that? Are you able to lighten? So many of us take life so darn seriously. Let's just give it some levity. We're not here for a very long time. I had to be willing to be seen as an idiot. I'm so much more untouchable when I can name what my fear is. As they say, name it to tame it. As soon as I can give what I'm afraid of a name, I can go towards it and I can see that it's not as large as I thought that it was. It no longer owns me. I own it. So, how I'm being perceived, if you think I'm an idiot for messing up now and then, it's simply not attached to my self worth because I can laugh about it and I can't be manipulated now because of it. The only way to detach is by sitting in the discomfort of facing your fears. Just like anything worth having, you aren't given confidence unless you give and risk. Just like you only get strong when you strain your muscles, or you only get humble when you surrender your pride, you have to give something up in order to gain it. So if you're here and you truly want to be confident, risk others' perceptions of you. It's just the way it's going to be. For example, I was so afraid of holding the mic. What I'm doing right now took years. I was 23 when I started what I called Habitat Humble, and I had a group of my friends come onto Zoom. I also advertised this on Instagram, so I had strangers joining, and I was so scared. Looking back at those videos, I'm so proud of myself, and I'm also squeamish because it's really awful to see me so uncomfortable. But what I do love is that support and community around it, where everybody actually needed me as I was. You are already qualified exactly as you are and where you are because there's already going to be somebody behind you or somebody who can learn from where you are right now. Fear is false evidence appearing real. You have to go towards it in order to know it and own it. After I started Habitat Humble, despite the incredible nerves before every single call where I was the center of attention, I still put myself in that seat weekly because I loved what came out of those calls. And that is what's going to make it worth it for you too. You're going to get pushed to the point that not changing is going to hurt more than trying. Those weekly calls turned into my now business, Devoted to Extraordinary, years down the line, and now my YouTube channel. And I never, ever would have thought that that would be me. And I still have 2 glasses of water here because I need to hydrate when I'm on the mic. So, despite feeling slightly nervous, you do it anyway. There is no other way. And even those people who are professionals will say the same thing. Research calls this the confidence-competence loop. You have to close the gap between the two. In order to feel competent, you have to actually try. What had to close the gap for me was feeling accountable. I wasn't telling myself and then doing it, so I had to tell the public. I'm going to upload YouTube videos weekly, and then you expect it from me. And that is what eventually closed the loop. And I started to trust myself to do this often. The research shows that doing something repeatedly lowers your resistance to it. It feels more effortless because you build up your competency. You have a firm trust now. You have that confidence. Everybody starts at zero. There was a time that I had zero subscribers, zero coaching clients, zero people who would even be in a circle with me. But those things start and bloom naturally. You are a social person and you can talk to people about what you want to create. You're already there. I'd argue that the internet has flipped. 10 years ago, when YouTube began, there was a whole bunch of eyes on very few channels. Today, though, attention is dispersed. We have low demand and high supply, so a lot less eyes on a lot more content. This means that your imposter syndrome is perfect. It's exactly what you need, and it is normal to come on here and say, I don't know how to do this. That is so relatable. And that's the one thing that gurus and people who've been in this space for so long don't have. That card of relatability. People want to hear from their next door neighbor or from their friend quicker than from somebody who is 10 years ahead of them. People want to hear from others who give them permission to do something, who show them that it is possible to fulfill that. Not from those who already made it, but from those who are making it from nothing, because they can now too. The foundation of confidence is that firm trust due to these 7 actionable steps I'm going to give you right now. 1, do the next right thing. This is diligence, the virtue of careful and persistent work or effort. Like I said before, how will you manage a business if you cannot even do the dishes or do the laundry? When you can do those things in an enjoyment, in a restfulness, in that art of surrender I was talking about, you're extra feminine, you're in your heart center, in your maybe humming music while you're doing it. It makes life so much more enjoyable. And in that reality, so much more extraordinary. Number 2, when you're anxious, count to 5. So many times I have told my clients for emotional regulation to simply pause. That is truly the only way to actually rewrite your brain. You have to change in the moment of being triggered or in the moment that is most difficult for you. Otherwise, learning all this theory is great, but it gives no different results. Take the action that is different. Count to 5. When you count to 5, when you pause before responding, when you're capable of holding the moment that triggers you or that you feel is difficult, you are capable of reacting differently, which will give you a different outcome. When you're quiet in this time, instead of saying, if, and, or but, you are showing that you are confident and that you are calm and that you have that center. Then, once you've got the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you try. You have that willingness to try and you take that moment of courage and you take that step towards risk. There is no other way. Number 3, and one of my favorites, you own your quiet strength. When you focus internally and you are in yourself, owning your own story and your own experience, it allows for this gentleness around you and an essence of understanding instead of resistance. There is suddenly a flow to you and a knowing that everything around her is really quite nice. I enjoy that. To own your quiet strength, you can practice this. From turning between anxious and a confident person, actually physically shift this posture. Lean back further in your chair and take one full, deep, and long breath. In that time, somebody will probably keep talking, or if they ask you a question, they might continue their story. So you'll notice that you don't need to engage as often as you once did. And there is some effortlessness to that because you start to realize that you don't need to put in effort that you might consider people pleasing. Simply stay in your own energy, remain in your vitality, and see how others are still reacting. But don't feel pressured to speak up constantly. Number 4 is what would fill in the blank do? If there is a feminine figure on TV or in a book that you love and adore and want to be like, fill in her name in that blank. This allows you to distance yourself from the emotionality of it. You can practice shifting your identity. This is called self-concept or behavioral activation therapy. It means you can suddenly shift into a different identity or try on a new outfit and find it much easier to attempt the new behavior. Put on your objectivity glasses and see it from this lens rather than thinking how difficult it is from your subjective point of view. Number 5 is prepare. Know what you want to do, know what your life would look like when you are that woman that you really want to be and know that you can be, and then work backwards. When I'm going to film a YouTube video, I spend my week researching, talking, having conversations, thinking, reading, watching videos before I sit down and I write and I read it through and I hear myself and I see what it's going to sound like before I hit record. There are all these pillars in place so that I know and I can fall back to my own behaviors and I have my own back on that firm trust. That is that confidence competence loop I was talking about before. When you prepare, you know that you are able in the moment, and suddenly your confidence is boosted. Number 6, reframe. See how the best things in your life came from the worst things. I can tell you that the hardest lessons I will never ever repeat because those are the most ingrained morals for me. If I hadn't gone through heartbreak, I never would have cared to research and learn about emotional intelligence as much as I can now teach. I never would have understood how I can have better, more healthy relationships. If I had never been drained from fighting against the climate crisis for that many years, I never would have questioned the narrative and I wouldn't have been able to help you see through deception. See how you would not be who you are today if every single thing hadn't gone exactly the way it had. Choose that right now. And if you're struggling to do so, book a complimentary call at the Typeform link. The 7th way to be confident, the question I always ask myself to be in full integrity when I make decisions is, does this give me peace? I chose many things in my life before that went towards suffering because I didn't see how I was draining my energy because I was not enjoying doing it. When it came to going to university and making those big life decisions, I listened to what other people told me I should do rather than what I knew I needed to do. Had I followed the question, does this give me peace? I would have been able to answer, no, I'm going to do something else with these years and with this investment. Looking back, of course, I love that I did because of all the connections that I made and everything I learned along the way. But hindsight is a teacher, and this question is what grants you that wisdom. Does this give me peace? So I hope you can now see how confidence is not just something that you are given, but something that you have to make. It is a skill, it's not a personality trait. I hope that as a woman, you can see how important it is to rest and to be able to surrender, to have that courage. That is how you build that confidence. Simply being willing to try every single time over and over again, because the research shows that doing something repeatedly, not only does it lower your resistance to it, but it also strengthens those neural pathways so that you can be that person repeatedly and more effortlessly along the way. If this video helped, I ask you please share it with a friend who might be shy or introverted or needing that little pep talk and that reframe, and comment your story so I can also see where you've been and encourage you to go all the places that you desire to go. Until next week, as my grandmother used to say, harden not your heart, love and serve each other.